Today we're adding to our series of 3 handmade tools. How many have gone home, looked in the mirror and gone, 3 handmade tools? I bet you nobody has, I'll quit saying it. Anyway, what we're going to talk today in our 3 handmade tools is our thick bottoms and how to control them. When you're throwing, quite often you can't tell the thickness of the bottom or the walls. And it's quite easy when you have this pot on the wheel. You can measure with your needle. You can push it down on the bottom and determine just by pushing through. Or your walls, you can tell how thick it is. Put the needle through the wall, put your finger to the other side, and when your needle touches that finger, you got to quit pushing on the needle, and then you can determine how thick that is. This is quite thick. I've left it thick for trimming, and I've lots to trim with and play with and talk about. But if you're trimming and as you're going through the process, sometimes you don't know where you are in thickness, and there's a couple of tricks for that, or handmade tools. The first one is you can just get a little mat tack. This is just a little tack, and you can poke it in there to the side, and I'll show you why in a minute. And what will happen is when you're trimming, you'll trim down to the thickness of that tack. But sometimes you want to have a different thickness than is available in the tack, and that's when you can make your own little measurer or needle in a cork. You see here, all I've done is I put a needle in a cork, and then I can, just by pushing one way or the other, I can make a guide for when you're trimming your pot. So I'm just going to make that so that that one's, the map tack's a little bit thicker, and this one's a little bit thinner. Now I've got my guides in there, and I can turn my bowl upside down and center it and start trimming. I won't make you watch me center pots. You've seen me center pots before. Okay, now we're upside down and we're centered. Remember that I put in the 2 little tacks. The one handmade cork tap isn't quite as long as the map tack, and so it's higher up in the bowl or lower down in the centering, and the longer tack where you want it to be thicker is closer to here. Now another handmade tool we can talk about before we start trimming anything are our hands. As you can tell just by tapping with your finger, I don't know if you can hear that or not, the different thickness: thin, thick, thin, thick. Anyway, so you can listen to the pot and it'll tell you how thick it is. If you've been trimming for a while and you do this and your pot starts to move, you're done. Absolutely done. Okay, I'm going to start trimming a bit, keeping in mind that we do have our guides in there. And I'm just going to trim away quickly. You can see I made this thick just for a reason. Okay, now there I hit a guide. You can feel it go. So I hit the first one. Where is that guy? I can't see it, but you can feel it with the needle. Then I'm going to go along, and there's the other one. And you can feel those guides. You can't see them. So now I know I have the thickness that I want my walls to be. I can go ahead and I can put a definite foot on this, and I can trim it up. Okay, it won't take a long time trimming this, but I wanted to show you the guides, but they're not poking through. Anyway, trust me, they're there. You'll feel it go tick, tick, tick. I don't know if you can hear that. Probably not. And you can just trim this up the way you like. I'm going to quickly just talk about thickness in here too. If you are unsure, you could do any kind of, you could do as many guides in your pot as you wanted with the thickness you have. But I'm just going to trim that out this way. In there, I think you can really notice the... So that's getting your bottom thin after it's gotten thick. But a good idea is not to let your bottoms get very thick. So I'm going to show you, after I finish sponging this, a way to prevent the thick bottom entirely. The next in our 3 handmade tools is a quarter. Now, I didn't actually make the quarter. The government here does frown when we start making your own money, but I'm going to use the quarter as a guide to how thick or thin your bottom is going to be. Now, quite often when you put a bigger piece of clay on there and you start going down this way, you lose track of how far you've gone down to the wheel head. You don't want it to be too thin. So, and you can always measure with a needle, But quite often on tall, thinner pieces, you start working that bottom and you lose track of just how thick or how thin it is. And the quarter is going to be a guide to where to stop. So we've got our ball of clay, and I'm just going to take off a little bit of clay and put this over there for a minute. And I'm going to put this on the wheel like a pot, kind of in the center. And with my fist, I'm just going to tap and turn, and just gently tap out a pancake. Now my pancake is going to be bigger and thicker than I want the bottom to be, because I'm going to, well, center it, and then I'm going to smooth it and work it like the bottom of a pot, because this is the bottom of your pot. So that's probably as thick as I want it, and there they are, as thick as I want it. And so I'm going to measure, and it's about that thick, which is thicker than I want a bottom to be, but I want to trim this a bit, and I want to compact it, so I've got some clay to work there. And I'm going to make it round, number one. I'm just going to do that by dropping my needle in there. Now I've got a round bottom. And I'm going to work it a little bit. Oh, it's like a piece of clay to hold my needle. And I'm just going to work it a little bit, back and forth like you would. It doesn't have to be perfectly round, but now I've got it kind of worked. I want to make my bottom completely dry, just by running my thumb over it and taking all the moisture off of there. So this is the bottom of my pot. I'm going to put my quarter in the middle of that, near the middle, it'll be centered. And now the rest of the clay, I'm going to put on there, making sure there's no bumps or air caught and it's dry. I'm going to put it on there just as I put it on the wheel, and then I'm going to just throw it as I would a pot. And I can open it. And now when I go down in the middle of that, I'm going to keep going further and further until there. I'll take the water out so you can see my quarter. Now I know how thick that bottom is. So now I can go into opening and throwing and finishing. I'll just throw a quick cylinder. So I want to show you what happens on the bottom, but we're not going to spend a lot of time making a pot. Probably give it one more quick pull, and I'll go in and finish up the bottom and show you the quarter. I think I'll open this up a little bit so you can see inside. Make an open cylinder, there we go. And I'll open it one more time. This is not about the pot. So now I've got a very weird shaped bowl and a messy bottom. I can go in there and clean that up. And I know when I'm cleaning how far to go. Because I'm going to get to the stage where it's flat and my bottom's clean. Remove the quarter. I got a messy bit in there. I can just tidy that up a little bit. You know, your bottom's already been worked before you put the quarter on there. So you're just going to smooth it off, and you have a very weird shaped bowl with a controlled bottom. There we go. There's another episode of 3 handmade tools. We had our fingers to tap for sound. We had our tack, either the store-bought, where you can't control the thickness, and the one you make ourselves with the cork where you can. One thing I didn't show you, which I'm sure you figured out, is when I threw the bowl, I took the tacks out and I sponged up any messy bits and made them very tidy. And then we had our quarter to determine the thickness before it got thick, and this is determined after we get thick. Anyway, so there we go, our 3 handmade tools.